Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel Legal Decipher. In the previous video, we discussed about chapter 4 of the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. If you have not seen that video, you can go and check it. The link is in the description below. Today we will discuss about chapter 5 of the CRPC. We'll go through the chapter and try to understand how the criminal procedure is followed and how the criminal courts work. If you are new here, please like and subscribe to the channel to get video notifications. So let's get started. So today we are going to learn about chapter 5, which relates to arrest of persons. Now chapter 5 is a very important chapter. In this chapter we are going to learn about the modes of arrest and all the other aspects that relates to the arrest of a person. This is going to be a long chapter. So it starts with section 41, which says when police may arrest without warrant. So it says that any police officer may, without an order from a magistrate and without a warrant, arrest a person. Now we all know that a police arrests a person with an arrest warrant or an order from the magistrate. But there are certain cases also where the police may arrest without any such order or warrant. So what are these cases? The cases where a police may arrest without any order from a magistrate or without any warrant are when a person commits in the presence of a police officer a cognizable offense. So when a person commits a cognizable offense in the presence of a police officer, he shall be arrested without any warrant. Or against whom a reasonable complaint has been made, or a credible information has been received, or a reasonable suspicion exists. So whether a reasonable complaint has been made against that person, or a credible information has been received against such person, or a reasonable suspicion exists that this person has committed a cognizable offense which is punishable with less than 7 years or which may extend up to 7 years. So anything between 3 years to 7 years. So that person has either committed or against him such credible information has been received or a reasonable suspicion exists against him that he has committed such a cognizable offense which is liable to be punished with either below 7 years of any imprisonment or such imprisonment may extend up to 7 years, whether with or without fine, if the following conditions are satisfied. So not only these are the conditions, but also the following conditions also need to be satisfied. What are such conditions? That the police officer has reason to believe on the basis of such complaint, information or suspicion that such person has committed the said offense. So the police needs to be sure about the commission of such offense on the basis of such complaint, information or suspicion. Also, the police officer is satisfied that such arrest is necessary. Why it is necessary? To prevent such person from committing any further offense, so that the person cannot commit any further offense, or for proper investigation of the offense. He has committed an offense. Now arrest is necessary for proper investigation of that offense and to prevent such person from causing the evidence of the offense to disappear or tampering with such evidence in any manner. Now if this person is an offender, he would very likely try to cause the evidence of the offense to disappear, or he may tamper with the evidence. So to prevent that, such arrest is necessary. To prevent such person from making any inducement, threat or promise to any person acquainted with the facts of the case, or to dissuade him from disclosing such facts to the court or to the police officer. Now if that person has committed any offense, then chances are there that somebody has seen him do that, or he may otherwise be vulnerable, or someone may try to expose him that he has such and such committed that offense. So this offender may make inducement, threat, or promise to that person who is acquainted with the facts of the case, so that he does not disclose any such fact to the court or the police. So to prevent that, an arrest is necessary, as unless such person is arrested, his presence in the court whenever required cannot be ensured. Now we need to understand this, that the police officer does not arrest a person to keep him within the police station. He needs to transfer such offender to a magistrate, the nearby magistrate, within 24 hours. So if he cannot produce such offender in court whenever it is necessary, to ensure such production whenever necessary, that arrest is needed. And the police officer shall record while making such arrest his reasons in writing. He will also record why he has arrested that person in writing, provided that a police officer shall, in all cases where the arrest of a person is not required under the provision of this subsection, record the reasons in writing for not making the arrest. So whether he makes the arrest or he does not make the arrest, he needs to jot down the reasons behind making such arrest or not making such arrest. Also, when a police may arrest without any warrant, he may arrest any person without any order or warrant against whom credible information has been received that he has committed a cognizable offence punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to more than 7 years, whether with or without fine or with death sentence. So he has committed such and such offence where the punishment for such offence is more than 7 years, or it may be a death sentence, and the police officer has reason to believe on the basis of that information that such person has committed such offence. So in these cases, he will arrest without a warrant. Another case is where the offender is a proclaimed offender. Now we have learned about who is a proclaimed offender in the previous video. So if the police finds out that this offender is a proclaimed offender under this code or any other code of the state government, then the police officer may arrest such person without warrant. Or in whose possession anything is found which may reasonably be suspected to be a stolen property. So this offender is in possession of anything that is stolen or reasonably suspected to be stolen, and who may reasonably be suspected of having committed an offence with reference to such thing, which means he has committed theft. So in that case, he will be arrested without any warrant. Or who obstructs a police officer while in the execution of his duty, or who has escaped or attempts to escape from lawful custody. So a person who is obstructing a police officer from executing his duty, or he has escaped or attempted to escape from any lawful custody, in this case he will also be arrested without a warrant. Or who is reasonably suspected of being a deserter from any of the armed forces of the Union. So whether that person belongs to the Indian Army, Indian Navy, or Indian Air Force, or any other armed forces of the Union, and he is a reasonable suspected deserter, which means he has deserted such force and he is a deserter. So that person will also be arrested without a warrant. Or who has been concerned in or against whom a reasonable complaint has been made, or credible information has been received, or a reasonable suspicion exists of his having been concerned in any act committed at any place out of India, which if committed in India would have been punishable as an offence. So he has committed such and such offence which is termed as an offence in India, but he has committed it outside of India, and he comes under any law relating to extradition, okay, or otherwise liable to be apprehended or detained in custody in India. So any act he has done that is considered as an offense in Indian territory, if he commits it outside of India and somehow the police has caught him, then he will be arrested without any warrant. Or who, being a released convict, commits a breach of any rule made under subsection 5 of section 356. We will read about this later. So, if he is a released convict, he has committed an offense, he has been arrested, he is under trial, and he has been released on any rule or any condition, and he commits a breach of that rule, he will also be arrested without warrant. Or for whose arrest any requisition, whether written or oral, has been received from another police officer. So a police officer can send requisition to another police officer, whether in written or in oral, that this person needs to be arrested, provided that the requisition specifies the person to be arrested and the offense or other cause for which such arrest is to be made. So if that person is to be arrested by such requisition, then the police officer who is sending such requisition shall also specify for which person such requisition has been sent and what type of offense or cause is related with him for such arrest. And it appears therefrom that the person might lawfully be arrested without a warrant. So in this case also the police officer may arrest such person without any warrant, subject to the provisions of section 42, which is not giving their name or residence or refusing such. So notwithstanding this section, no person concerned in a non-cognizable offense or against whom a complaint has been made or credible information has been received or reasonable suspicion exists that he shall be arrested except under a warrant or order of a magistrate, then what happens is that no person who is concerned in a non-cognizable offense. Okay, so if it is a cognizable offense, we have read it in subsection 1 that he has committed a cognizable offense. So whether the person is committing a non-cognizable offense, then such person does not come within the purview of section 41. Okay, except if a warrant or an order from magistrate has been passed for the arrest of such person. Now let's talk about section 41A. It says notice of appearance before police officer. Now let me give you a brief history about this section. In the year 2008, an amendment was done to the Code of Criminal Procedure and this section 41A was inserted. While in the 2008 amendment, the section 41A read that the police officer may. So it was on the discretionary power of the police officer. But after the 2010 amendment, it was amended and written as the police officer shall in all cases. So the discretionary power of the police was removed and it was provided as a mandatory section for the police officer to be complied with. The police officer shall in all cases where the arrest of a person is not required under the provisions of subsection 1 of section 41 issue a notice directing the person that he has committed a cognizable offense to appear before him or such other place as may be specified in the notice. So the Supreme Court in the Arnesh Kumar case ruled that there shall be a procedure for appearance before the police officer just to avoid unnecessary arrest of the accused. So for that reason section 41A came into existence. So section 41A says that the police officer will send a notice to the accused who has committed any such offense or against him a credible information has been received or a reasonable suspicion exists or a complaint has been made against him that he has committed a cognizable offence. The police officer will send a notice to him under section 41A and tell him to appear before such police officer at the police station or such other place as it may be specified in the notice. And where such a notice is issued to any person, it shall be the duty of such person to comply with the terms of the notice. So the person has to comply this. Where such person complies and continues to comply with the notice, he shall not be arrested in respect of the offence related to the notice. So if that person is sent such a notice under section 41A from the police officer, then he will have to comply such notice, the terms of such notice, and as long as the person complies and continues to comply with the notice, he shall not be arrested in respect of only that offence which is referred in the notice. Okay. So where such person at any time fails to comply with the terms of the notice or is unwilling to identify himself, so either he does not comply with the terms of the notice or he does not identify himself or is unwilling to identify himself, the police officer may arrest him for offence mentioned in the notice, subject to such other orders as may be passed by any competent court in this behalf. Now let's come to section 41B. It tells us about the procedure of arrest and duties of officer who is making such arrest. So every police officer while making an arrest shall do these things that are mentioned here. Number one of which is bear an accurate, visible and clear identification of his name, which will facilitate easy identification. So the police officer shall give an accurate, visible and clear identification about the name and details of that offender, so that such offender or accused may be easily identified later on. Number two is prepare a memorandum of arrest. So whenever an arrest is made, an memorandum of arrest is prepared. That memorandum of arrest shall contain attestation of at least one witness. At least one witness shall attestate that particular memorandum of arrest, who is a member of the family of that person or a respectable member of the locality where the arrest is made. Okay. So either of the two persons will attest as one witness, and there shall be a countersign by the person who is being arrested. So the person who is the offender who is being arrested shall countersign such memorandum of arrest, and the police will also inform the person who is arrested, unless there is a memorandum attestation of a member or a family, that he has a right to have a relative or a friend named by him to be informed of his arrest. So whenever an arrest is made, a person has the right to inform any relative or a friend that he has been arrested by the police. So it is the duty of the police officer to inform that person about such rights. Now let's move on to section 41C. It says control rooms at districts. So it was also a mandatory provision set up by the Supreme Court that the state government shall establish a police control room in every district and at state level. Okay. Now the state government shall cause to be displayed on the notice board kept outside the control room. So outside every control room, the state government shall keep a notice board, and on that notice board there shall be displayed the names and addresses of the persons who are arrested and the name and designation of the police officers who made such arrest. Okay. Now the control room at the police headquarters at the state level shall collect from time to time details about the persons arrested and the nature of their offence with which they are charged, and maintain a database for the information of the general public. So this is very important. The police headquarters at the state level, where they have their control room, in that control room they shall collect from time to time the details about those persons who are arrested, and also they should specify the nature of the offense with which such accused persons are charged with, and maintain a database for the information of the general public. Now let's move on to section 41D. It says right of an arrested person to meet an advocate of his choice during interrogation. It says an accused person, when he is arrested and interrogated by the police, he shall be entitled to meet an advocate of his choice. So he can take the help of an advocate of his choice during interrogation, though not throughout the interrogation. Okay, so he may get necessary assistance from his advocate, and he may do so during interrogation, though not throughout the interrogation. Now let's talk about section 42. It says arrest on refusal to give name and residence. So when a person who is in the presence of a police officer and he has committed or has been accused of committing a non-cognizable offense, and he refuses on demand of such officer to give his name and residence, or he gives a name or residence which such officer has reasons to believe to be false, he may be arrested by such officer in order that his name and residence may be ascertained. So when a person has committed any non-cognizable offense in the presence of a police officer, and when such police officer demanded that he should give his name and residence to that police officer, and such accused refuses to give so, then to ascertain his name and residence, such police officer may arrest him. But when the true name and residence of such person has been ascertained, he shall be released on his executing a bond with or without sureties to appear before a magistrate if so required. So when he gives his true name and identity and the residence where he lives and all, when he gives this information to the police officer, he shall be released with or without sureties by executing a bond. So he may give sureties or not, that will be decided by the police officer, but he will have to execute a bond and he shall be released, provided that if such person is not a resident in India, the bond shall be secured by a surety or sureties residing in India. So where the person is a non-resident of India, say for example he comes from another country and he finds himself in this kind of situation, then he will have to secure his bond by a surety or sureties who are residents of India. Should the true name and residence of such person not be ascertained within 24 hours, that means whether that name and residence of such person could not be ascertained within 24 hours from the time of arrest, or he fails to execute a bond, that accused person fails to execute a bond, he shall forthwith be forwarded to the nearest magistrate having jurisdiction. So the police officer will not keep that person with him, he shall forward the same person to the nearest magistrate who has the jurisdiction over that area within 24 hours. Now let's talk about section 43. It says arrest by private person and procedure on such arrest. So we can understand from this section that a private person may also arrest another person, and what will be the procedure of such arrest we will learn in this section. It says any private person may arrest or cause to be arrested by any person who in his presence commits a non-bailable and cognizable offense. So if an offender commits a non-bailable cognizable offense, then a private person may also arrest that person or cause such arrest. Or if such offender is a proclaimed offender, then also that private person may arrest that offender, and without unnecessary delay such private person shall make over or cause to be make over any person so arrested to a police officer. He will not keep that offender with him, he will transfer such offender to the nearest police station or to a police officer. Okay. Now, if there is reason to believe that such person comes under the provisions of section 41, then the police officer shall rearrest him. So if he comes under the provisions of section 41, we have read about section 41, what is written there. So if that offender comes under such provision, he has done something that comes under that provision and he is liable to be arrested, then the police officer shall rearrest him. If there is reason to believe that he has committed a non-cognizable offence and he refuses on the demand of a police officer to give his name and residence, or gives a false name and residence, then he shall be dealt with under the provisions of section 42. We have also read about section 42, that whenever a person does not give his name and residence or gives a false name and residence, then he shall be arrested. So that will also happen in this case. But if there is no sufficient reason to believe that he has committed any offence, then he shall be at once released. So when a private person arrests another person, then such private person is not having a good knowledge of law. He may be a layman. He may not know exactly what a cognizable or a non-cognizable offence means, or whether such offender has done anything that breaks the law. So if the police officer who is having knowledge about such procedures, if he thinks fit that such offender has not done anything that makes him liable to get arrested, then he shall release such accused person. Now let's talk about section 44. It says arrest by magistrate. So a magistrate can also arrest a person. When any offence is committed in the presence of a magistrate, whether executive or judicial, within his local jurisdiction, he may himself arrest or order any person to arrest the offender. So when an offender has committed any offence in the presence of a magistrate, whether such magistrate is an executive magistrate or a judicial magistrate, within the local jurisdiction of such magistrate will himself arrest that person or order any other person to arrest that offender. Okay. Now any magistrate, whether executive or judicial, may at the time of arrest or direct the arrest of any person for whose arrest he is competent at the time and in the circumstances to issue a warrant. So any person against whom such magistrate can issue a warrant for his arrest, such magistrate may also directly arrest without any warrant. He shall arrest that offender or direct his arrest. Now let's move on to section 45. Only the first part of section 45 is important. It says protection of members of the armed forces from arrest. So it says notwithstanding anything contained in section 41 to 44. So section 41 to 44 is applicable. No member of the armed forces of the Union shall be arrested for anything done or purported to be done by him in the discharge of his official duties, except after obtaining the consent of the central government. So the members of the armed forces of the Union of India are exempted from arrest by the Code of Criminal Procedure, except without the consent of central government if he was discharging his official duties. Okay, so only after obtaining the consent of central government such arrest can be made, and section 41 to 44 are still included. Now let's talk about section 46. It says arrest how made. So this is the procedure, actual procedure of how an arrest is made. In making an arrest, the police officer or other person making the same shall actually touch or confine the body of the person to be arrested. So the person who is to be arrested needs to be touched and his body needs to be confined, unless there be a submission to the custody by word or action. Say for example, the police officer says that we have come to arrest you, you need to submit yourself to our custody, and by words such person says that okay, I will not resist your arrest. So if the person does not resist, if the person may be arrested by word only, then it is okay. If such person does not by word submits himself, then the police officer may actually touch or confine the body of a person for such arrest, provided where a woman is to be arrested, unless the circumstances indicate to the contrary, her submission to custody on an oral intimation of arrest shall be presumed. So when the offender is a female person and the police has come to arrest her, then such arrest is to be made on oral intimation. Unless the police officer is a female, the police officer shall not touch the person of the woman for making her arrest. So if the offender is a woman and the police officer is also a woman, then the police officer may actually touch the offender. But if the police officer is not a woman, then for the arrest of such a woman offender, the police officer will have to orally intimate about the arrest and not touch the person. If such person forcibly resists the endeavor to arrest him, then or attempts to evade the arrest, then such police officer or other person may use all necessary means to effect the arrest. So basically the police will apply force on such offender. Okay. Nothing in this section gives a right to cause the death of a person who is not accused of an offence punishable with death or with imprisonment of life. So this is very important. If the person who is an offender, if such offender is not accused of an offence that is punishable with death or imprisonment for life, then to effect the arrest of such offender, the police officer cannot or does not have the right to cause death of that person. Okay. Now, save in exceptional circumstances, no woman shall be arrested after sunset and before sunrise. So, no woman offender shall be arrested in between the hours of night, after sunset and before sunrise. And where such exceptional circumstances exist, the woman police officer shall, by making a written report, obtain the prior permission of a judicial magistrate of the first class within whose local jurisdiction the offence is committed or the arrest is to be made. So either where the offence is committed or where the arrest is to be made, within that local jurisdiction there is a judicial magistrate of the first class. So the woman police officer will go to the judicial magistrate of the first class and make a written report to obtain the prior permission of such magistrate in such exceptional circumstances and effect such arrest between the hours after sunset and before sunrise. Now let's move on to section 47. It says search of place entered by person sought to be arrested. So what happens when the offender moves into a certain place or enters into a certain place to prevent that arrest? So in this case the police officer has some rights. What are they? If any person acting under warrant of arrest or any police officer having authority to arrest has reason to believe that the person to be arrested has entered into or is within any place, so the offender has entered into a certain place or is living inside that place, and any person residing in or being in charge of such place, we are talking about another person who is also residing inside that place and or is being in charge of that certain place, on demand of such person acting as aforesaid or such police officer, allow him free ingress thereto. So that person who is in charge of that place or is residing therein, he shall allow the police officer a free ingress. Free ingress means he shall help the police person to enter into that premises and afford all reasonable facilities for a search therein. And if ingress to such place cannot be obtained under subsection 1, it shall be lawful in any case for that police officer to break open any outer or inner door or window of any house or place if he understands that without breaking open that outer door or inner door or such window, the offender will be allowed or afforded an opportunity of escape. So the police officer cannot let that offender escape an arrest. So in order to do so, he will break open any outer or inner door or window of any house or place, and that will be lawful, provided that if any such place is an apartment and such apartment is in the actual occupancy of a female who is not the person that is to be arrested, and such female according to custom does not appear in public, which means she is a Pardanashin lady, and such Pardanashin lady is in the actual occupancy of such place where the offender is likely to take shelter. Before entering such apartment, the police officer will give notice to such female that she is at liberty to withdraw herself, and the police officer shall also afford her every reasonable facility for such withdrawal, and then break open that apartment and enter it. So that Pardanashin lady will be given all such opportunity to withdraw herself. Any police officer or other person authorized to make an arrest may break open any outer or inner door or window of any house or place in order to liberate himself or any other person who, having lawfully entered for the purpose of making such arrest, is detained therein. So what happens? Say for example, the police officer entered into that premises to catch the offender, and the offender somehow escaped, and on his escape route such offender has locked that police officer inside that premises. So the police officer has all the legal right to liberate himself and other persons if they are detained therein by breaking open any outer or inner door or window of that house. Now let's quickly move on to the next three sections. Section 48 says pursuit of offenders into other jurisdictions. So the police officer who is about to arrest any person may pursue such person into any place in India. Okay. Now let's move on to section 49. No unnecessary restraint. The person arrested shall not be subjected to more restraint than is necessary to prevent his escape. So a person who is to be arrested, the police officer shall subject him to only that much restraint that is necessary to arrest him and not more than that. Now section 50 says person arrested to be informed of grounds of arrest and of rights to bail. So every police officer or other person who is arresting any other person without warrant shall forthwith communicate to him about the full particulars of the offence for which he is arrested or other grounds for such arrest. So he will be informed about the grounds for which he was arrested. And where a police officer arrests without warrant any person other than a person accused of a non-bailable offence, so this subsection will not be applicable to a person who is an accused of a non-bailable offence. So if a person is accused of a bailable offence, he shall be informed by the police personnel that he is entitled to be released on bail and that he may arrange for sureties on his behalf. So the next section is 50A. It says obligation of person making arrest to inform about the arrest etc. to a nominated person. So the police officer who has made the arrest under this code shall forthwith give the information regarding such arrest and place where the arrested person is being held to any of his friends, relatives or such other person as may be disclosed or nominated by the arrested person. So the police officer, after making the arrest, shall ask the arrested person to give the names of his friends, relatives, or other person to whom such offender wants to disclose about the arrest and the place where such offender or arrested person is being held. Okay. Now the police officer shall inform the arrested person of his rights under subsection 1 as soon as he is brought to the police station. So this right will be made clear to the arrested person, that such arrested person has the right to inform his friends or relatives or any other person whom he likes to inform, and such rights will be communicated to the offender or the arrested person by the police officer as soon as such arrested person is brought to the police station. And an entry of the fact as to who has been informed of the arrest of such person shall be made in a book to be kept at the police station in such form as may be prescribed by the state government in this behalf. So the state government has already prescribed a form that is to be maintained and made into a book that is kept in the police station. Such book contains all the entries of the fact that an arrested person has been communicated that he has the right to inform any person about his arrest, and the name of the person so communicated about the arrest. The book shall contain all these informations. It shall be the duty of the magistrate before whom such arrested person is produced to satisfy himself that the requirements of subsection 2 and 3 have been complied with in respect of such arrested person. So who will look after the matter that such rights were provided to the arrested person about informing and about jotting down of the details of the person who was informed about such arrest? The magistrate has the duty to look after all these matters, whether the police has done his part of the job or not. So the next section is section 51. It says search of arrested person. So whenever a person is arrested by a police officer under a warrant which does not provide for taking of bail, so it is a non-bailable warrant, or under a warrant which provides for the taking of bail but the person arrested cannot furnish bail, so the person fails to furnish a bail. Whenever a person is arrested without warrant or by a private person under a warrant and cannot legally be admitted to bail or is unable to furnish bail, in all these cases the officer making the arrest, or when the arrest is made by a private person and the private person delivers such accused to a police officer, such police officer who makes the arrest or takes such person into his custody may search such person, I mean such offender, and place in a safe custody all the articles found upon him other than necessary wearing apparel. So he will not take away his clothes, he will only take away all the other articles that are found while searching the offender upon him. And the police officer shall make a receipt showing the articles taken in possession by the police officer, and such receipt will be given to the arrested person. Whenever it is necessary to cause a female to be searched, the search shall be made by another female with regard to strict decency. Okay, so decency will be maintained and such female offender will be searched by another female police officer. Now let's move on to section 52. It says power to seize offensive weapons. So if the offender was carrying any offensive weapon and such weapon was found on searching him after the arrest, then such weapon shall be taken away from him and it will be delivered to the court or to the officer before whom such person needs to be produced by this code. Now, section 53 talks about examination of accused by medical practitioner at the request of police officer. So, when a person is arrested and there are reasonable grounds for believing that an examination of this offender will afford evidence as to the commission of an offence, then it shall be lawful for a registered medical practitioner to make such examination of the person arrested and to use such force as is reasonably necessary for that purpose. So wherever it is found that an offender is arrested and a medical examination is necessary to give out the evidences of the commission of an offence, or if there are reasonable grounds for believing that such examination will provide evidences for the commission of an offence, then it shall be so done by a lawful registered medical practitioner. And to conduct such medical examination, necessary force may also be applied on the offender or the arrested person whose medical examination is going to happen. So whenever the person of a female is to be examined under this section, the examination shall be made only by or under the supervision of a female registered medical practitioner. So a female offender shall be medically examined by a female registered medical practitioner. Now we will also read about the explanations. It says examination shall include examination of blood, blood stains, semen, swabs in cases of sexual offences, and sputum and sweat. Also hair samples and fingernail clippings by the use of modern and scientific techniques including DNA profiling and such other tests which the registered medical practitioner thinks necessary in a particular case. And who is a registered medical practitioner? It means a medical practitioner who possesses any medical qualification as defined in Clause H of Section 2 of the Indian Medical Council Act 1956 and whose name has been entered in a state medical register. So there is a state medical register and these medical practitioners' name are entered into that register and they are possessing medical qualification as defined in Section 2 Clause H of Indian Medical Council Act of 1956. Now let's move on to section 53A, which is a very important section. It says the examination of person accused of rape by medical practitioner. So where a person is arrested on a charge of committing an offence of rape or an attempt to commit rape, and there are reasonable grounds for believing that an examination of his person will afford evidence as to the commission of such offence. So a medical examination is needed for providing evidence about the commission of such offence. Then it will be lawful for a registered medical practitioner employed in a government run hospital or by a local authority to make such examination, and in the absence of such a practitioner within the radius of 16 kilometers from the place of where the offence was committed by any other registered medical practitioner. So if there is no medical practitioner within the radius of 16 kilometers, then only another registered medical practitioner on the request of a sub-inspector of police or an inspector of higher designation may conduct such medical examination and also may use such force as is reasonably necessary for that purpose. The registered medical practitioner conducting such examination shall without delay examine such person and prepare a report for his examination. Now he will without delay he will examine such person and prepare a report. Now what will be the contents of the report? What shall the report contain? The report shall contain the name and address of the accused and of the person by whom he was brought. Also the age of the accused, the marks of injury, if any, on the person of the accused. So if the accused is having any marks of injury, or the description of material taken from the person known as the accused for DNA profiling. What kind of material was taken from the accused for DNA profiling? It shall be mentioned there. And other material particulars in reasonable detail. Okay. Now the report shall state precisely the reasons for each conclusion arrived at. So the report will contain that we have found this and this. Now the conclusion that such medical practitioner has arrived at shall be stated precisely, giving exact reasons about why such conclusion was arrived at. The exact time of commencement and completion of the examination shall also be noted in the report. So the exact time when the medical examination was started and when it completed, both shall be noted in the report. The registered medical practitioner shall without delay forward the report to the investigating officer. The medical practitioner's duty is to conduct the medical examination without delay and shall prepare a report with these precise informations in it, and without delay forward such report to the investigating officer, who will further forward it to the magistrate. Okay. Now section 54 talks about examination of arrested persons by medical officer. So when any person is arrested, he shall be examined by a medical officer in the service of central or state government, and in case the medical officer is not available, by a registered medical practitioner soon after the arrest is made. So when a person is arrested, as soon as he is arrested, he shall be going through a medical examination by a medical officer in the service of central or state government, and where such medical officer is not available, by a registered medical practitioner. Provided that where such arrested person is a female, the examination of the body shall be made only under the supervision of a female medical officer. So where the offender or arrested person is a female, her medical examination shall be held by a female medical officer, and where such female medical officer is not available, by a female registered medical practitioner. Now the medical officer or the registered medical practitioner who is examining shall prepare a report of such examination, mentioning therein any injuries or marks of violence upon the person arrested. So if the arrested person is having any injury marks or any marks of violence, then such report will contain those informations and the approximate time when such injuries or marks have been inflicted. Okay. Now where an examination is made under subsection 1, a copy of the report of such examination shall be furnished to the arrested person or to the person nominated by such arrested person. By whom? By the medical officer or the registered medical practitioner. So the arrested person or any person who has been nominated on behalf of the arrested person will get a copy of such medical report. So the next section is section 54A. This is also an important section. It talks about identification of person arrested. Now an arrested person is needed to be identified by any other person or persons considered necessary for the purpose of investigation. So the complainant needs to identify the accused for the purpose of investigation. Now how will this identification happen? The court will order, on request of the officer in charge of a police station, that the persons who are arrested shall be subject to an identification by the complainant. Now this kind of identification is done basically through a test identification parade or TI parade as we know it. So the accused is mixed up with a group of other persons, and the complainant is to identify the accused among all these other people. This is done to test the veracity and the memories of the complainant, whether he is rightfully accusing a person or not, provided that if the person identifying the person arrested is mentally or physically disabled, which means if the complainant who is identifying is mentally or physically disabled, the process of identification shall take place under the supervision of a judicial magistrate. So the judicial magistrate will supervise in this case, and such person shall be using any method which the person is comfortable with to identify the arrested person, provided further that if the person identifying the arrested person is mentally or physically disabled, then such identification process, the entire process, shall be videographed. Okay. Now let's move on to section 55. It says procedure when police officer deputes subordinate to arrest without warrant. So when a police officer or an officer in charge of a police station takes up an investigation and requires any officer who is subordinate to him to go arrest a person without a warrant otherwise than in his presence. So where such officer in charge is not present in the situation and he designates his subordinate to arrest without a warrant, such officer in charge will provide an order in writing to the subordinate officer, and that order shall contain the name of the person to be arrested and the cause for which such arrest is to be made. And the person, the subordinate officer who is making such arrest, may notify the offender about the existence of that order and may also show him the order. Now section 55A talks about health and safety of arrested person. It says it shall be the duty of the person having the custody of an accused to take reasonable care of the health and safety of the accused. Okay. Now section 56 says person arrested to be taken before magistrate or officer in charge of a police station. So a police officer making an arrest without warrant shall, without unnecessary delay, take or send the person arrested before a magistrate having jurisdiction in the case or before any officer in charge of a police station. So the person who is making the arrest shall not keep the accused in his custody. He shall forward him to the nearest magistrate or police station in charge of that particular area. 57 says person arrested not to be detained more than 24 hours. So whenever a person is arrested, he shall not be detained in the place of arrest more than, or in a police station more than 24 hours. This 24 hours excludes the time that is necessary for the journey from the place of arrest to the magistrate court. So we all know that a accused person is moved before a magistrate's court within 24 hours. Now these 24 hours do not include the time that is necessary to be taken for the journey from the place of arrest to the magistrate's court. Okay. Now section 58 talks about police to report apprehensions. So all the police officers in charge of a police station shall report to the district magistrate, or if he is so directed, to the subdivisional magistrate, that they have arrested certain persons without warrant within the limits of their respective stations, and whether such persons have been admitted to bail or otherwise dealt with. Okay. So they need to inform these apprehensions. Now section 59 talks about discharge of person apprehended. So when a person is arrested, then such arrested person shall be discharged only on his own bond or on bail or under special order of magistrate. No person who has been arrested by a police officer shall be discharged except his own bond or on bail or under the special order of a magistrate. So if the apprehended person wants to get discharged, he shall furnish his own bond, or he shall be on bail, or he shall have the special order of a magistrate. Now section 60 talks about power on escape to pursue and retake. So if a person in lawful custody escapes or is rescued by any external force, then the person from whose custody he escaped, such person who was in charge of his custody will immediately pursue him and arrest him in any place in India. Okay. Now the provisions of section 47 shall apply to the arrest that is to be made under subsection 1 of section 60. Now what was there in section 47? Section 47 talked about the powers of a police officer to break into a place or to make search of a place where accused person is believed to have taken residence. Okay. Now section 60A talks about arrest to be made strictly according to the code. So it says that no arrest shall be made except in accordance with the provisions of this code or any other law for the time being in force for providing such arrest. So that's all in this video. If you like my videos, then don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video.